I tugged my cardigan tighter around me, though it was warm outside. My sneakers scuffed lightly against the polished tiles as I joined the end of the line at my own bank. Just another customer, I reminded myself. Yet the stares I felt weren't ordinary, they were knives glancing off my skin. She doesn't look like she belongs here, I heard, soft but sharp, from a teller behind the counter. I froze, pretending not to hear, though my hands clenched, into fists at my sides. When it was finally my turn, I stepped forward, trying to keep my voice steady. I'd like to withdraw some money. The teller's sigh cut through me before his eyes even met mine. ID, he said, clipped, as if I were a problem waiting to be solved. I handed over my card, feeling the weight of every second stretch. He held it, smirking like a secret shared with the universe. We've had fake IDs before, you people. My stomach twisted. I wanted to lash out, to demand respect, but the words caught in my throat. Check her pockets, a man muttered behind me. Not even a whisper, a statement. I inhaled slowly, forcing calm. Excuse me, I said firmly, my voice trembling despite my best effort. Why am I being treated differently? Silence. A few whispered glances darted around the counter. Ma'am, step aside, a security guard instructed, blocking my path. His tone carried no warmth, just authority, just suspicion. I felt every eye in the room drilling into me. A mother near the back whispered to her son, "This is why you follow rules." My chest tightened. Their casual cruelty made me feel invisible, like I had no right to exist in this space. "Why don't you believe me?" I asked, my voice steadier now, more insistence than question. The bank manager approached, his expression cold, measured. "Because you don't belong here," he said. I swallowed hard, tasting the bile of humiliation, anger, and disbelief. The line stretched behind me, people murmuring and staring. I wanted to scream, to shake them, to force them to see the stereotype they'd written over my skin, but all I could do was breathe, clench my fists, and remind myself I am here. I am allowed to be here. I felt the cold press of security guards on either side, their hands brushing mine with the weight of accusation. I straightened my back, lifted my chin. "I'm a customer here. Check the system," I said, my voice steady, though my chest felt like it might cave in. One of the guards exchanged a glance with another, then muttered, "Lady, don't make this harder than it already is." "I'm not trying to make it hard," I said, my fingers tightening into fists. "You can verify me in seconds." The manager's laugh was sharp, cruel, and deliberate. "We don't take orders from you," he said, eyes cold, unyielding. A man in line sneered, leaning over slightly. "Maybe she's casing the place," he offered, as if it explained everything. I swallowed my rising anger, forcing it down. My voice stayed calm. "Do you even hear yourselves? Do you know what you're saying?" No one answered. Just rehearsed indifference. Their silence pressed down on me harder than their hands. I searched their faces, each one a mask, every eye void of recognition. Humanity had left this room. The cuffs clicked around my wrists, the sound slicing through the air. My stomach lurched, but I refused to let it show. "Really," I said, "is this what passes for justice?" The guard shrugged, expression neutral. "It's procedure." Police arrived moments later, walking in like they owned the building. They didn't ask a single question. They just nodded to the security, and I was led toward the doors. My heels clicked against the marble floor, each step a drumbeat of humiliation. From behind me, the crowd whispered, voices thick with judgment. Figures, always the same story. I swallowed the bitter taste in my mouth, breathing through the fire of rage and shame. My hands ached in the cuffs, but my mind raced. Every whisper, every glance, every dismissive gesture, it all added fuel. They could cage me physically, but they hadn't touched my resolve. I glanced back once, catching the manager's smirk, cold, confident, certain, but they didn't know me yet. Not really, and I would make sure they remembered my name. I sat on the metal bench, the chill seeping into my bones, and folded my hands over my knees. "Run my name," I said, voice even. "They'll see I'm a customer here." The officer leaned against the wall, arms crossed, smirking. "We'll get to it. Don't push your luck," he said, as if my very existence was trouble. Another officer laughed, elbowing him. She probably thought she could pass for rich. My palms pressed together, tight, and my voice cracked just a little. "I came here because I believed in fairness." They laughed again, and it sounded like rocks sliding over glass. I swallowed the sting, letting silence grow louder than their cruelty from the corner. A fellow detainee whispered, "They never listen, sister. They never do." I leaned slightly toward her. "But they will," I whispered back. The first officer's head snapped around, eyes narrow. "You threatening us now?" I shook my head slowly. "No," I said quietly, letting my words carry a different weight, "I'm promising." My own voice echoed in the small, stark cell, steady and alive. For the first time since I'd been taken, it felt like a seed planted in the cold, waiting to grow. I closed my eyes for a moment, listening to the laughter fade into the hum of the fluorescent light. Every jeer, every sneer, every dismissive glance, it was no longer a wall, it was a mirror, and I could see myself on the other side, unbroken, waiting. I opened my eyes. met the gaze of the woman beside me, and nodded. Quietly, we understood each other. They didn't know it yet, but I was already fighting. The door slammed open, and a man in a sharp suit strode in, papers clutched in one hand. "Why is my client here?" he demanded, voice slicing through the stale air. The officers shifted, uneasy, exchanging quick glances that spoke louder than words. He dropped the stack of paperwork onto the bench between us. "She's the CEO of the very bank that called you," he said, slow, deliberate, letting each word land. Silence, thick, heavy, suffocating. The manager brought in moments later stammered, eyes wide. That can't be." I leaned forward, locking eyes with him. "Say it," I said, calm but fierce. "You never thought someone like me could own this place." His shoulders slumped. "It was a misunderstanding," he muttered, words feeble and thin. My lawyer's voice cut through, sharply. "A misunderstanding in handcuffs." I raised my head, voice trembling but strong, carrying every ounce of the humiliation, the hours spent in that cold cell, the stares, the whispered accusations. "Did even one of you think to listen when I spoke?" No one answered. Their silence filled the room, louder than any confession. I could feel their eyes on me, finally recognizing me, not the stereotype, not the assumption, but the person I had always been. Every second of injustice they had tried to impose now shifted back onto them. I exhaled slowly, letting the tension drip from my shoulders. This was more than vindication. It was the first crack in the walls they had built around their prejudice. The manager swallowed hard, and for the first time, I saw uncertainty where there had only been arrogance. I straightened, meeting each gaze, letting the weight of my presence speak louder than any words I could utter. They had assumed power over me. Now, they realized it had always been mine. The courtroom buzzed with whispers, the sound pressing against my ears. I kept my hands folded on my lap, trying to steady my racing heart. The prosecutor stood, voice sharp. "She resisted security," he claimed, like my very existence was a crime. My lawyer's eyes flared by asking to be heard. He shot back, voice ringing through the chamber. I caught the murmurs of the witnesses shifting in their seats. One customer muttered, "She looked suspicious." "Suspicious how?" the judge asked, leaning forward, pen hovering over the docket. The witnesses faltered. I don't know," one said, voice wavering. "Just something about her." The bank manager avoided my eyes completely, muttering excuses that trailed off like smoke. I rose, my voice steady, carrying every ounce of anger, humiliation, and resolve. I stood in line like anyone else. I handed over my ID like anyone else. But I was never seen as anyone else. A shift rippled through the courtroom. Heads turned, eyes widened, the air thick with the weight of my words. Silence followed, heavy charged, impossible to ignore. Then, low murmurs began spreading, tentative at first, then firmer. I turned to the judge, gaze unwavering. "What is my crime?" "Looking like I don't belong." He paused, hand hovering over the gavel. The silence stretched, all eyes on him, and finally his voice came, careful, deliberate. "This court recognizes prejudice." A fire lit inside me, steady and quiet, as if every insult, every glance, every handcuff I had endured had led to this moment. I could feel it in the way the room shifted around me, how the weight of injustice finally seemed to bend under its own truth. The murmurs grew, but I didn't flinch. They were acknowledgement, not mockery. The walls that had pressed down on me for so long were cracking. I met my lawyer's eyes, nodded once, and let the courtroom breathe in what had finally been spoken. I wasn't invisible anymore, not to them, not to anyone. Every word I had spoken, every accusation they had whispered, it had been mirrored back, and now it was undeniable. I belonged. The courtroom doors closed behind me, and the noise of the hallway pressed in like a tide. I hadn't even taken a step before the bank manager caught up, breath uneven, face pale. I never meant. His voice trembled, and I cut him off. "You meant every word," I said, my tone flat, sharp. "Until it cost you." He swallowed hard. "You'll ruin me." I tilted my head, letting the silence stretch just long enough to weigh on him. "You ruined yourself," I said quietly, letting each word sink like stones into the pit of his chest. A security guard approached, voice low, almost muttering. "I was just doing my job." I didn't blink. I met his eyes. "Your job is listening, not obeying cruelty." He shifted, unable to find words. His silence said more than any defense could dot. Another officer muttered behind him, "We were wrong." I felt the words, but they came too late, too shallow. "Wrong isn't enough," I said, voice steady, measured. "Change or you'll repeat it." Their guilt folded inward, twisting them silently, but I didn't wait to watch them unravel. I turned and walked away, each step deliberate, the weight of their reckoning echoing behind me. Every glance they had ever given my dismissive, suspicious, cruel now lay at their feet, and I was finally free of it. The phone rang late that night, jolting me awake. I hesitated before picking it up, and when I saw the number, my chest tightened. "Please," the bank manager's voice cracked through the line. "I have a family." I let a long pause stretch between us, tasting the desperation in his words. Then I whispered, steady but cold, So did I, and you tore my dignity apart in front of them. I'm not racist, he sobbed, voice trembling, almost pleading. I closed my eyes, letting the memories of the line, the cuffs, the whispers, and the courtroom flow through me. You don't need to call yourself one, I said finally. Your silence said it for you. He swallowed hard, the sound of it echoing over the phone. Please, I can fix this. I know, I interrupted, voice firm, unwavering. You wanted me invisible. Now the world sees you instead. There was nothing left to say. His cries softened, faltered, and eventually faded into silence, swallowed by the collapse of his own making. I hung up, breathing slow and steady. For the first time in weeks, I felt the weight of their cruelty lifting, replaced by the quiet, relentless power of justice spoken, delivered, and seen. I leaned back against the wall, letting the stillness wash over me, knowing the truth had finally been heard. The microphones felt heavier than they should, yet I didn't flinch. I took a deep breath, letting it anchor me. I was arrested in my own bank because of how I look, I said, voice calm, measured. Each word carried every insult, every handcuff, every whisper. They told me I didn't belong, but I do. I always did. The journalists leaned forward, pens poised, cameras clicking, but I saw past them. I saw the truth in their silence, the questions in their eyes. Racism is not only shouted, I continued, letting the words fall like stones. Into still water it is whispered in banks, signed in silence, and hidden in laughter. That silence is violence. A reporter cleared her throat. What now? I met her gaze. Now, we build a place where no child has to see their parent cuffed for existing. The room murmured softly, the sound like small waves of acknowledgement. I let the weight of the moment settle, then closed with the words that had burned inside me from the very beginning. You never saw me as human, but I've always been more than what you feared. The applause was quiet, reverent, not the shallow claps of polite recognition, but the sound of understanding, of acknowledgement, of power reclaimed. I stepped back from the podium, letting the silence follow me, feeling the heavy lift from my shoulders, and knowing that every stare, every sneer, every whisper of doubt had led to this moment, my voice, finally, unshakable.